Good evening and welcome to the 8th episode of Our Dutch Ambassador In. It's a series about our ambassadors from the sub-Saharan region, and this program is being developed and created in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Tonight, we will have a conversation with our ambassador in Benin, or Benin. To Tjoelker-Kleve, a warm welcome to you and thank you so much for joining us. You were the ambassador and head of development cooperation in La Paz in Bolivia. That was in 2007, and in Bamako, Mali in 2011. Now, at this moment, you're the ambassador to Cotonou in Benin, but your area is much larger than Benin, if I'm correct. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And your particular interest, so I've heard, lies in women's rights. Mm-hmm. Very warm welcome to you. We will have a conversation with you tonight, but not only you, because we're joined with a very esteemed guest. A warm welcome to you as well, to Reine Alapini-Gansou. She's a jurist and a judge of the International Criminal Court here in The Hague. And if I'm correct, you grew up in Benin, right?
What?
Vous venez du Bénin, n'est-ce pas?
Yes, but so far I'm in the Netherlands since 3 years ago.
Ah, very good. We are joined by a translator as well, so thank you so much. And at certain times you will translate for us, so thank you for your efforts in that regard. In order to introduce Ms. Alapini-Gansou a little bit more, with these people, I'm very honored that you're here. We will discuss the current challenges the country faces and what hopes there is as well. I think it's going to be quite an optimistic program today, if I understood you correctly. Very good. And we also will discuss how the Netherlands relates to the Benin government, and we will discuss which part Dutch diplomats should play in Benin. It's fantastic to have you at this table. I have to mention as well, it's fantastic to see live people here, because it's been over a year that we've been in this room, in this studio, where we talked to the camera and pretended to see you all at home as well. So to have real live people here is great. It's almost emotional, but I won't let it get that far. But you all will have the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the program. Before we dive into this conversation together, you will tell us a little bit more about your work in Benin as an ambassador, but also as a feminist standing up for women's rights. And you will tell us a little bit more in detail about the influences that the Netherlands have in Benin. So I would say this real floor, usually I said if we would be here through Zoom, I would say the virtual floor is yours. But now I can actually say the floor is yours.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here with Reine Alapini-Gansou and to be here with a lot of friends and a lot of colleagues and people who are just interested in Benin and in the relationship between Benin and the Netherlands. And to start, Benin is a long stretch country, 3 times the Netherlands, reaching from the coast of the Gulf of Guinea to the borders of the Sahel, Niger, Burkina Faso. Very diverse culture, very diverse nature. 35 different cultural groups with their own histories, their own languages, their own traditions, governance and living. The population of Benin, 12 million, is young. 80% is under the age of 35 years. And this youth is full of energy and hopes and creativity, but at the same time, they face a lot of challenges. And young girls have even more energy, but also more challenges. And before I go into the challenges in Benin for young men and young women, I just want to describe shortly what does an embassy do, the Embassy of Cotonou. The present relationship between Benin and the Netherlands is based on common goals and common interest: stability, development, multilateralism, and human rights. And as an embassy, we provide consular services for Dutch people, consular services for Beninese travelers to the Netherlands, but also to Cameroonese and Nigerian students that want to come to study in the Netherlands. We advise Dutch enterprises that want to invest in Benin. But most of the embassy work in Cotonou, most of the team of the embassy work in development cooperation on themes like food security, water supply, sexual and reproductive rights and health, governance. As an ambassador, I'm a manager. I'm a team leader of 20 persons, Beninese and Dutch. And I'm also the face of what the Netherlands is doing and financing. So I was thinking, how shall I go on? And I was thinking I will just tell 4 little stories of what I did last 3 months. And last February, I visited a program that fights the habit of child marriage. In Benin, 9% of the girls get married before 15 years, 31 before 18. 5% of the boys get married before 18 years. And girls can die, just die when they get pregnant before 15. And so their body is not yet ready. And in that visit, there's a whole program to really try to get it on the agenda. And in this visit, I visited school clubs of young girls, young boys, playing theater, trying to speak out, through theater to speak out what they wish, what they want how they want to be, how they want to love, how they want to, and especially they wanted to finish school. Mm. And I met parents, I met imams, I met the traditional king of Silinandé, I met the prefect of Bougou. And all these people were engaged in a movement against child marriage. And the imams told me that they do not anymore marry young people before 18 years in the municipality of Silinandé, as they really want to keep the girls at school, give them a chance to develop, and for them the most important argument was to respect the national law. And I felt really the power of that movement. My role was just to acknowledge and encourage them in their work. The Netherlands finances this program since 2014. And during the first 3 years of this program, the impact was still small. But after the heads of states of the African Union signed a declaration against child marriage in 2017, and after the president of Benin visited the traditional leaders to set up a campaign, Tolérance Zéro, against child marriage, the king of Silinandé responded and invited all the imams of his municipality and the parents' associations to really sit down and say, how can we help each other to stop child marriage? And I think really that's interesting to see now there's perspective for the young people to choose and to direct their own lives, and with whom and with who they want to marry or to get children. Social changes demand local leadership. And in development cooperation, one can only provide financial and moral support for movements and rights when both countries stand for these changes. So that was in February. In March, I went to the Atacora. And soon after my arrival, 2 years ago, the government of Benin asked the Netherlands to concentrate our development programs in the north of Benin in order to support young people in getting more grip on their lives and in order to prevent radicalization. So 2 years ago, my team identified programs that were already successful in other regions of Benin, and we decided to extend them to the north. For example, a program to support young entrepreneurs, and a program organizing producers, women and men, to have better access to the big market of Nigeria. And the embassy set up with SNV a program for young farmers, women and men, to learn the techniques to improve their access to land and to credit. And also in the health sector, we extend our support to the north so that the young women and young men can really have access to anti-conception and know everything about sexuality. And in fact, in all these programs, we stimulated the agency of the young people. And the embassy team does all the preparatory work with the authorities, with the organizations involved. But my role is to stimulate, to approve, to speech, and to support the young people involved, to stimulate the monitoring also on the results. And at the same time, when you go to the north and you speech for the opening of this new SNV program, you have the possibility to discuss with the prefect of the Atacora, a lady, about security issues, about what's going on in the north, what's going on with Burkina Faso. And so that you really can speak about the risk of spillover of terrorism, what's happening in the Sahel. So that was March. Now in April, we had the elections of the presidential elections, and the president was installed in the 23rd of May. And I was there, representing the Netherlands. During the campaign, during the election campaigns, as an ambassador, you observe, you analyze what is happening. And I saw how the situation became more and more polarized, and how there were ethnicist and regionalist discourse. And I think my role then is to analyze it and to report to the ministry with all the nuances that you can get on the floor. And as an ambassador, one does this kind of work in the hope that the analyses provide background to the ministry, going beyond the sometimes superficial, if any, coverage and rapid conclusion of the media. So that was April and May. But I still want to tell something about the Covet epidemic, because that also is important. Last year, when the Covet epidemic started, the embassy helped Dutch citizens to return to the Netherlands, those who wanted, on special flights. In Benin, there are not so much Dutch people, but there were 15 people returned. In Cameroon, it was more than 50. And my work was also, during the COVID, to provide to my team a safe working place, a safe working environment. And furthermore, the embassy also monitored and looked, what does this COVID has as influence on the people? How does it affect the informal economy? How does it affect the women that go to the market? And also what was very interesting sometimes, and people that know me longer say, never waste a good crisis. We really, with the Ministry of Social Affairs, with the Ministry of Finance, we developed new interventions, innovations on cash transfer to mothers so that girls could go on going to school. So it was a very interesting time because it was also a time where you had to be creative. So just 4 examples of my work: diverse, interesting, demanding permanent presence, demanding knowledge, and having a good network of relations in place. And this enables also the Netherlands to be able to react to urgencies. And innovating in the local context with the local people. And for me, this international engagement matters a lot, as we are related to each other in this global work. And working at country level is creating conditions to work at global level. Benin and the Netherlands together. Nous sommes ensemble.
Thank you so much. That could be an applause for that. I think. Thank you so much. There's a wide array of responsibilities that you described. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And there's also a very big array of countries that you're responsible for as an ambassador, not only Benin. What countries are you responsible for?
Cameroon, Gabon, and Guinea Equatorial.
Right. But you're
Spanish, French.
Right. How do you juggle all those responsibilities? Because it's quite a big area.
Yeah, I think we have really a big program of development cooperation in Benin, and Benin is the priority area. In Cameroon, we do work with the European Union and through a few NGOs on especially LGBTQI rights and on environmental issues. And I go twice a year to Cameroon when there's no COVID. I mean, and in Gabon, it's more that we try to work together on issues where we really have a common interest. And so, for example, the Ministry of Environment of Gabon spoke at the big meeting here in The Hague on climate change and climate adaptation.
Right. What you also mentioned was that the local context and the relationship with local people is very important. Yeah. If we look at the work ambassadors did in history, it was quite working with a quite Eurocentric vision. We know what's best, and we will bring you the best as well in the country. That was ages ago. But how do you juggle the context that you're from, Europe, with the context that you're working in?
Juggle?
Well, because
how do you manage
it and make a connection to really understand what benefits Benin,
and
but also
what benefits the Netherlands?
Exactly.
Well, I think if you want peace, if you want stability in the world, Benin is a very interesting country to really invest in because it's stable and it gives a lot of stability, especially when you look to the Sahel, where things are a bit messy. And I think if you really want to do your work well, you have to know the context. Otherwise, you could do it from The Hague.
How do you get to know the context?
Listening, interviews, going out, speaking with people,
Really?
meeting people. And when you think, hey, I don't know something about a subject, you look who are the different persons and you go.
Right, right. Thank you so much. Can I ask you, what is your reaction to the story we just heard?
Thank you so much. I'm waiting for that question, but even you don't ask a question, I'll speak on it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can say, first of all, is that after listening to To's presentation, I am now convinced that we can have a committed diplomacy. A committed diplomacy. I don't know if I am making myself well understood. Mm-hmm. If you don't understand very well, I will say it in French, and it will be explained for the public here. Because I'm seeing that To is an ambassador for the Netherlands in Benin. And as ambassador, she's well committed. She's well committed, and it's the kind of people we need around the world now. If you are a teacher somewhere, you should be committed. If you are a judge, you should be committed. If you are a diplomat, you should be committed. If you are not committed on such issues like human rights, women's rights, the right of childhood right, and so on, you can stay at your home and continue to work to your government. Is what I want to highlight in all what she has presented to us now. And I think that is such a people we need in Benin, actually.
Yeah. That commitment is very important, that connection to the context is very important as well. That commitment, is that also a reason why you decided to be a jurist and finally a judge?
I don't know how I can respond to that question, but I can say that since my childhood, I like to discuss with people, I like to speak and so on. And when I continue my school, my college and so on, I decided just to do my law in University of Benin. I'm a whole product of Benin.
If you are a product of Benin, can you explain to us what your experience was growing up in Benin?
My experience, when I read this program, I see that somewhere I will be asked how I spend my life in Benin. And I was thinking, I say what I can say. Maybe I will cut my life, I present my life on 3 parts. 1, my family life. Secondly, my professional life. And thirdly, my activist life.
Let's start with the family life.
The family life, I'm married, I have children, and I think that sometimes it's so difficult to me to follow them because the professional life can go beyond my family life. But I'm well understood. My family supports my decision, and that is why I'm here today. That is about my family life.
And in the family life that you created for your own family, is it different from the way you grow up yourself?
I don't understand very well what you are saying, but I have my family now.
La vie familiale que vous avez établie, est-ce que c'est différent de la vie familiale dans laquelle vous avez grandi?
Tout à fait.
Absolutely.
Tell us more. Tell us more.
Tout à fait. I have my whole family, but no too much big family. I have my father, my mother, and my sister, and so on. In our family, we are 6 children. But I lost my young brother a few years ago, but we are still there, turning around. But my nuclear family, if I can say that, I am there with my husband and my 4 children. I love them, and they love me too.
That's quite important, of course. Your professional life, what would you describe about your professional life?
My professional life, as I'm saying just now, is that I'm from Benin. I went to school, a primary school in Benin, in Ouida, ma ville natale. She knows very well. So far, she is in Benin. So for a few moments, but she knows she start knowing very well Benin now, and fortunately she has been in my city, Ouida, who is an historic city, and everybody should belong to go to Ouida when you reach on Benin, and. I did my primary school in Benin, in a confessional school in Benin, and after that I do my college also in Benin, in another town, and I do my study in law, my university in Benin too. But I have been lucky because of my work, because of my willingness. So I always try to study, to go, to take certificate from here, to go, and so on. And
did you believe that you had enough opportunities to realize your dreams?
I got.
Did you get them or did you create them?
Both.
And how did you create them? What obstacles did you have?
I got opportunity, but I put this opportunity in how I can say in creation. Why? I can say that apart from my professional life, my activist life, for instance, allow me to be part of many women associations in Benin. She will know it. And after that, it's allowed me to embrace human rights locally and internationally.
What was it about human rights that made it so important for you to get involved?
No, I just discovered that I like human rights.
Why?
And because definitively, since my childhood, I don't like injustice. Since my childhood, and I am discovering myself that one day I decided to become lawyer in my country. And after that, through my associative life, I start traveling in the area of human rights and defending people, going and coming back until now.
And you worked at the Women's Legal Aid Center of the Wild Duck Network. What was your experience while you were working there?
My experience is so big. It is so big. I just take two experiences. One in my own country, where I try to defend some people against injustice. You know, and at the end of the day, we won. In the sub-regional level too, I try to do something, and I was speaking about it today in a situation we call Alidu Wedraogo situation and so on sub-regional level. And in continental level, I have been at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights for 12 years. And the second, the most important experience I can share with you while I was at the African Commission is about sexual orientation rights.
Yeah.
And I was obliged to tell to the political actors that a people is a people. We cannot go on his choice on sexual orientation and punish him. If you want to punish him, we, as member of the African Commission, will say no. That is the second experience in the African level, while I was member of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. I can share just these two experiences with you.
Yes, those are great experiences. But again, if injustice is a motor for you to do your work, to be an activist, it's a motor since you were a child. Injustice isn't ever going to disappear. How do you keep that motor running? Because injustice is everywhere here as well. I mean, you're confronted with injustice.
Injustice, you know, talking about human rights or justice and so on is like an ideal. I don't know if I'm spelling the right word in English. C'est un idéal. Quand on parle de justice...
When we speak about justice, it's an ideal.
Quand on parle de justice ou des droits de l'homme, c'est un idéal.
It's an ideal.
Qu'il faut poursuivre.
That we have to pursue.
Donc, vous ne pouvez pas dire à un temps T que vous avez réussi.
So you can never say that you succeeded in reaching it.
C'est un combat de tous les jours.
An everyday struggle.
Voilà, c'est un combat de tous les jours et c'est toujours des hauts et des bas.
And there are always ups and downs.
C'est comme ça la justice.
That's
C'est
what-
comme ça même la justice nationale.
That's
Et
what justice
plus
is about.
encore la justice internationale.
Even at the
Et
national
quand on
level.
parle des droits de l'homme, c'est la même chose. Donc
And-
c'est un combat de longue haleine.
Even more so at the international level. So when we speak about human rights, it's a long struggle.
Et comme je le dis, il faut l'aimer.
And you have to love the struggle.
Lorsque vous n'aimez pas les droits de l'homme, c'est pas la peine d'aller de ce côté.
And if you don't love human rights, there's no point fighting.
Yeah.
You have to love the struggle. You agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
As a person that is doesn't have the Benin background, but looks from the outside in, so to speak. If it's a combat, if it's a struggle, what's the biggest struggle that Benin is confronted with, in your opinion?
I think women's rights.
Ouais.
And young people get old, so they get at a certain moment the privileges of older people. But a woman stays a woman if she's not transgender, but okay. And I think it's really a very long struggle. I talked 2 days ago with someone who visited Bene in the 90s, and she said that at that moment, even in public meetings, the women were not present. Well, now they are at least present. And now they are in those programs I talked about with young entrepreneurs, the half of the persons that are women and are very combative and very strong, young women. But I think still before in Benin, what I really found remarkable is that the status of a woman is often to be the spouse of someone. And not to be just Ren, or to be just To, but you are the spouse of someone. And that's something that, and people present themselves. Even famous feminists say, I am spouse of, and always in relation
that
to
hierarchy is still there.
And that's so, yeah, that's quite a long struggle before you say, okay, I am myself, okay, and I have a partner, okay.
That individuality is still something that can be expressed more. You said that social changes call for local leadership.
Yeah.
Are there enough local leaders concerning women's rights in order to bring about that change?
Yeah, I think there are still more and more, and especially young feminists. I was very nicely surprised by, there's a whole network of young feminists, young boys and young girls, that they call themselves feminists. Well, we discussed it before. I think 5 years ago, feminist was like not something you were vindicated. That was more the old persons that did, old les anciens combattantes that did it. But the young people didn't feel so much comfortable with it. But actually, in Benin, you have a whole movement of young feminist girls and boys, young 15, 25, 30, that range, and they are really, I think, the new leaders. Yeah. And they have the energy. However, speaking about energy, and we had in December a very nice meeting in our garden after 2 weeks of campaigning against violence, against gender-based violence, with all those young feminists. And one of the items was burnout, because they give so much, and and also with the virtually struggle is even more tiring. There was a whole table around burnout of activists and burnout of young feminists. And what can you do to support each other to get back your energy? And what can you do also to build alliances and to divide work? You don't have to do all the same thing if you are
so
a
it's
different
about
network.
the awareness of the social network and supporting the social network as well. And that's a part of what the embassy does as well.
Yeah.
You talked about the elections in your introduction too, and I heard a slight laugh. Can you explain us why you had to laugh when we talked about the elections?
No, I don't say that I love to talk about election. And while I have been not in the ground at that time, I cannot speak too much on it. But I can say about what I have seen at the end of the day, that really, Madame Gansou is not a politician. I'm just an expert in law and in international human rights. But what I can say is that politicians are always fighting, and not to think necessary on the well-being of the population.
Right.
That is what I can say at the end of the day. But if you can allow me about human rights in my home country, I can say that really this struggle is so old now, because I can say that we started fighting for women's rights in my home country since 1990. And at a time, we saw that many feminist associations raised out and started working for the right of women, and we got at this moment the adoption of our family code and so on, which is a very revolutionary family code. But as To is saying now, is a real challenge. It's what I was saying just now, saying that when you are speaking about human rights, you can say that, today I have won, it's okay. And you will try to wash your hand and say, okay, it's good now. You cannot say that. You should continue to push, to push, to push. It's why today in Benin, we are still facing some situation in women's rights and also the rights of young people. And
we'll
just what I want to say and to share with talk here is that maybe we will continue to fight, we'll continue to find the best way, to find strategy and so on. But it's more important also why we are speaking about the young people, the young children who are maybe between 13 and 14 years, as you are saying. It's important that we will put into place such a program of mentora also. It is important.
We will talk about young people and about women's rights and human rights as well later on in the program, but still the elections is just a thing that I really would like to touch on, because I understood that not many people do go and vote in Bene. What I believe it's around about 50%. Why is that, and is it possible to change?
Yeah, I think there was this year there were less voters than normally. Generally in the press, they spoke that before, in the old system, because there has been very strong reforms of the partisan system. And before, I think in the elections of 2016, there were more than 250 parties,
250
all
parties.
Scattered,
Wow.
and all individual persons.
Yeah.
And really one-man show, often men, and with a lot of money going on. And so that was called the Feast of Democracy, but it was maybe a feast, but I don't know if it was so about really democracy, saying people having a choice and speaking out about an idea of a society or about a society. It was more about people.
Why did people take the initiative to create a party? Because if you look at the parallel in the Netherlands, we have a record of 17, maybe 18 now. Well, Peter Omtzigt has removed itself from CDA. 18 parties in our chamber.
Multiply that by 10.
Exactly,
Imagine.
but here it's said here that not every interest is being represented by the regular order parties. So that's why people initiate new parties and find an electorate for that as well. What's the reason behind the 250 parties in Benin?
To be someone.
To be someone.
To be a parliamentarian, to be someone.
It's for their own interest.
It's for their own, not for the electorate necessarily.
That was really the system, and I think now with the reform of the partisan system really aimed to get less parties, parties more structured, with a program, and especially less parties, so that you can make to build a party.
Is it possible for the government at the moment to make the circumstances and living circumstances of the citizens better? What steps are they taking?
Well, I think on development issues, this government is taking a lot of steps, and they have really they had a very strong program, and they are now preparing a new strong program with quite, how should I say, rigorously planned action. So we want 90% of water, for access to water for everyone. We want roads for everyone. We want schools for everyone, and they go in a very pragmatic way, they plan their development. Right. And if you look, I think this is a government where you really can achieve results on development. And because they are willing to change that kind of, to have objectives well set.
And in regard to human rights that we mentioned before, how is the government doing in that?
Now, that depends what is human rights. I mean, also about human rights, the government on women's rights are really wanting to take up the challenge on child rights too. But for example, the right to strike is one that the government made a reform, giving setting a rule that only you can strike 2 days a month. Because before people striked especially in the education sector and in the health sector, 5 months a year. So it was such a waste of energy, investment of the parents, of
But
the
was the
teachers.
strike justified? Was it justified that they had a strike for 5 months, or wasn't it justified at all?
It was often about salaries, I think.
And was that justified?
You give me the floor?
Yeah,
Yes.
take it.
You should never wait until I give it to you. You should just take it.
Okay. No, you know, it's a challenge. Eh? It is a challenge. As To is saying, things have been changing in the country now on the way of development and so on. And when you are looking at the current government, you will see that it has a program he belongs on and he wants to achieve. Right. But me, in my capacity of human rights activist, it's quite difficult to me to say, okay, everything is okay, let's move on and so on. That is the big challenge today, you know, and I fully agree with you when you are continue to ask the question how you can deal with this situation and to put on the same level the program of development, but also human rights in the country. I'm quite sure that this government will deal with the situation of women's rights in our country. I'm quite sure. I'm quite sure also that it will deal with the situation of, of young people and so on. But we have over, comment dit-on, d'autres domaines.
Other areas.
Other areas where we need improvement.
And what are the
in the situation of human rights.
What are the top areas that we need improvement
For
on?
me, for instance, the top area today is the right of detainees.
Of the what?
Detainees.
Prisoners.
Prisoners.
Prisoners, yeah. It's a big challenge. It's not for this government, it is a challenge which is there so far.
Can you explain a little bit about the situation?
I'm lawyer.
Yeah.
One, I visit prisons since I start working in my country, and I can today make difference between what it is my home country and another country in Africa. For instance, I would like to see in my country a center of detention like in Swaziland.
And the circumstances there are much better.
Yeah, it's just to say that we need more comfortable houses for the prisoners. They need to be comfortable on situation of the health care and so on, you know. And it's important also to them to eat very well. Their right for food and so on. Is just an example I'm giving to you.
So there are a lot of areas. In about 10 minutes, I would like to give the floor to the people in the audience to ask some questions. But there are quite a couple of topics I would like to press into that 10 minutes as well. Because on one hand, I'm very hopeful that the government is aware of the fact that child's rights and women's rights are important and they're taking steps. But on the other hand, the reality is that female mutilation still happens.
Really?
And how is that paradox possible? Is that
the culture is strong enough. Culture is very, very, very strong, badly strong.
And even government is not powerful enough to change that culture.
And for me, if I have to decide something about that issue, it's just to put into place some punishment. On appelle ça en français des mesures dissuasives.
The measures of deterrence, dissuasive measures to deter.
Oh, to deter it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
that's not happening now.
We are dealing with issue since I cannot tell you since 50 years ago. It is enough now.
Yeah.
Huh?
And so culture is strong. Is that the same reason why, even though you mentioned that you talked to the imams and you said that child marriages shouldn't be allowed, and the government did the same thing as well, but it's still happening? Is that the same reason that culture is strong?
The culture is strong on child marriage, and the culture is strong on FGM, but it's not the same.
No.
I think the imams are not the key on FGM. It's not through the imams that you get the key of stopping it. Then you have really to work with the parents, with the grandparents, with the aunts. Why do you want your little girl to be mutilated? And I think in Burkina they have done a huge work on it. In Benin also there's a national committee. But it is really working with the parents to at a certain moment stop it. Stop the mutilation, and it must come from the parents.
Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, it could be possible, because I will give you just a few examples within what kind of cases we got at the court and so on. You know, in the past, even some judges, men, don't feel the gravity of the situation, but slowly, with some activities, conference, workshop, and so on, men judges today are knowing what we are talking about, these issues.
Right.
That is one.
It's about informing the male judges to know the gravity of the problem there is. Yeah.
And the second one is that when you look around, when such a situation go to the court, the judges can punish very well. Even you are the mother of this child, you will be put in jail. We have already some cases on the ground, and for me, I think that is good to continue on that way.
Yeah.
We will continue to convince them.
And it's generational.
Yeah, we will continue to convince them, but at the same time, we will continue to punish.
Right. And it's so keeping on the conversation, but having measures in order to deal with it when that happens. Was there something you would like to add to that?
It's generational in the sense that I remember friends of mine in Burkina that at a certain moment they didn't want their child to be mutilated, and they said it to their parents, but in the holidays the children went to the grandparents to have a month of relaxing, and coming back at a certain moment the girl was mutilated. Right. And that made such a conflict between the citizen, younger generation and their aunts and parents, and he didn't want to go back to the village for a whole while because he was really shocked that his parents or aunties didn't respect their decision as young parents. So I think it is a generational issue that really, and it is something that has to come from inside. And in those programs around child protection, we do the topic of general mutilation is also spoken with the parents, because I think there lays the key.
Right. We have to be quick, so that's why I abruptly go to another topic, and that's about the relationship, the Netherlands or Europe and Benin, because for some people and for some women as well, there's an idealized vision of what can be, what can be achieved in Europe or in the Netherlands specifically. And sometimes sometimes women put themselves in quite dangerous situations in order to come here and to live here. How big is that problem, and are people aware of that problem, that when sometimes women come here, they could end up in prostitution, they could be lost?
I think this is not so much a Beninese problem. There are something like 150 Beninese people in all the Netherlands. I think because of the language maybe, and they're not. But from Nigeria, we know that a lot of women come and go into prostitution, sometimes misled. And I think that it's about information. But if it's by their own choice, it can be also their own right to be a sex worker.
Right. What is your perception on that case? Is there an idealized vision of...
Since I come in the Netherlands, I can count how many Beninese we have here. Since I'm here since 3 years ago, I can say to you that as women, we are just less than 6 people as women.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not,
not
that is not really challenging
Right.
coming from Benin, no.
Right.
Beninese women want to stay at home and fight for the daily food, for their children and so on. But go out to prostitution and so on, I don't think so.
No, right.
Yeah.
And final question that I would like to address, or topic that I would like to address before I give it over to the audience is, of course, the past year has been affected by COVID, globally, of course. Can you explain to us how COVID affected Benin?
Well, in Benin, actually, 5 new infections a day. And at this, I think at the most high level, it was like 30 infections a day for the whole population of 12 million. So it has never been very high. And over the period of 15 months, it was 8,000 people affected in total. So you can imagine it was what at a certain moment it was here a day.
Yeah.
That was about 15 minutes. 100 people have died from COVID. PCR, there has been a lot of testing. So what did Benin in the beginning was very strongly reacting in a very strong way, putting a cordon sanitaire around the cities of the south, so that it couldn't spread to the north or to the hinterland, you can say. They have kept open all the markets so that the informal economy could go on.
Right.
And that's something interesting because, for example, in Lagos, they closed everything and people died from hunger. And I mean, so that what, and in those 3 first months, everything had this on, it was quite a very strong reaction from in 1 week. And everyone had to do it, and with a lot of communication of the Minister of Health. And I think that was very well done because that gave Benin the possibility in the first 3 months to equip themselves with test facilities, with hospitals specialized for COVID, with also instructing all the preventing measures to be put in place. So that was, I think, the nice thing of COVID, or nice thing. It wasn't so bad, but never waste a good crisis. The Minister of Health told me I was, in a certain sense, I've never had the chance to have so much testing facilities, laboratories were set up. It is an economy with a Minister of Finance that doesn't give so much money to the health system, and now, the health system got twice so much as money as normally. And they put it on place for the health system and not only for the vaccination.
Right. And is it beneficial for a longer term as well, or is it only COVID related?
No, I think the laboratories and the test places and the people trained, that is on the long term.
Great.
May I add something about that situation? I think also because when I was in The Hague during the
COVID
high period of the COVID time, I was so sad because I was always thinking on my parents in Benin and asking myself, could I see them one day? Because I'm quite sure that every people will die with this situation of COVID. But when I went to holiday last time, I was very, very well surprised. And I say, what happened? And as To is saying, the government was working hard on this situation, but I can add something else about the population itself. I discovered that they are saying, we are poor population, but we have our local medication. So, prevently is better for us to take our drug prevently. And they are taking Kenkeliba, a thing Artemisia, there are thing and so on, and also the sanitary,
Gel.
comment on dit?
The gel, yeah.
Le gel?
Yeah,
Gel.
the gel, oui,
Yeah.
oui, les mesures sanitaires, sanitary measures, and so on. And I was so surprised, say, wow. And you can continue, try to trust on the government and go to your preventive test, and also if you can do it, so go and take your vaccination. Many things are being saying about the vaccination, and it is in the head of population. Government should continue to work on it and convince them to go to take the vaccination.
There's enough access to vaccination as
They have access, but they are afraid.
well. Yeah.
They have access, but they are afraid.
Yeah. Well, that happens here as well, I'm afraid. I would like to give the room the opportunity to ask some questions. We've got a mobile, distant microphone for everybody here as well. So if there's anybody, please raise your hand and we will make sure that a microphone will come to you. There, in the back of the room.
This question is for the ambassador. Thank you. You said Benin is a very stable country, and the Sahel region is not, has its challenges. I'm curious as to if you see any overflow of the instability flowing into Benin, and if not, what structures does Benin have in place to keep the instability out? Could you elaborate?
I think Ms. Alapini would like me to is saying that elle disait donc que Madame l'ambassadrice disait que le Bénin est un pays très stable, mais bien sûr il est limitrophe au Sahel, qui est une région justement qui est assez instable. Donc comment est-ce que le Bénin justement réussit à garder sa stabilité dans ce contexte-là, sans subir la pression de son voisinage, si on peut dire?
Yeah, I think Benin is very well aware of the risk of spillover that can happen. And it is known that there are some jihadist groups in the Parc W at the other side of the Beninese border. And so Benin is quite, that's why also they ask us to, all donors, to say, let's invest more in the north and not only in the south, to really give some perspective to young people. Even if you know that stability or radicalization is not directly related to poverty or to perspective, at least it gives perspective. So that's one of the pillars of the Beninese strategy, is really to go on prevention, to have more presence, but also to have more presence of more police and military presence. It has, I think, doubled in the last 2 years. They have also quite a system of intelligence. And in this system of intelligence, they work more with the local communities. They don't make, they don't stimulate militias apart, but they work really with their intelligence services and the mayors with the population, especially to know if there are strangers, jihadists, extremist people coming. I think I heard that they also have made appointments with the imams of the mosque to follow also what's happening in the mosques, etc. So they are aware of what can happen, and I think that's the most important thing. And they have now much more military actions and military presence in, for example, actually in Tangieta and in the north than before.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question for both women. You're here in different roles as a judge and as an ambassador, but you have similar interests, democracy and justice. I'm curious, what do you need in your role as a judge, and what do you need in your role as an ambassador to create greater impact in your role?
Thank you for that question, but I can say that in my role of judge, I need for state parties to help the judges to follow the rule of law and to respect the statute.
What needs to be done in order to achieve that? Is that international pressure?
No.
Is that sanctions?
You know, when you are working as judge in the international level, for instance, you have to follow the rules, okay? And following the rules, when you take a decision, it should be respected by any state. That is my challenge.
Yeah.
As judge, you know, we have our rules, we have our tests, we have our instruments, and we should work with that tools. And after working with that tools, we should be respected. And the decision we take should be respected.
And that doesn't, often enough, that doesn't happen.
Unfortunately, no.
But to bring that about, to make sure it happens more, what measures could be taken?
You know, I'm just a human being. I'm just Mrs. Gansou, and I have luckily been elected as judge at the ICC, you know. And I always say it will be like that forever. Because states are in their role, we judges, we are in our role, population are in their role. So I don't find the way where we could say that everything is going well 100%, no. We will face this kind of challenge. And my conviction is that each people, for instance, in my capacity of Madame Gansou, we should work conscientiously on our mission. You know, it's just like that. Because forever, we will see some states, we will say, no, you are not working well because you are not working for my interest. You know, while they are forgetting that we are there for working both for suspects, but also for victims, and more for victims, because the victim has nothing to deal with what happened on the ground on the issue of violation of human rights.
But if I would make it a little bit extreme, if you allow me, for certain states or certain countries or certain governments, why even bother to make a ruling, because nothing will happen?
Say it again.
Donc, dans le cas de certains pays, de certains gouvernements, pourquoi établir une règle de toute façon, parce que la chose va se passer? Pourquoi et même arriver à un jugement?
Non, on doit continuer de prendre des jugements. Ainsi va la vie.
We have to continue making rulings.
Ainsi va la vie.
That's what life is about. We have to continue.
Yeah. And fortunately, some issue will come and they will stay together around the table and discuss again.
Yes. Thank you. Another question.
You want me to answer to?
Yes, oh, sorry. Yes, pardon me.
Diplomacy is about building bridges and connecting and looking for the common interest between two countries or between different people in a country and the Netherlands people. And what I sometimes would like to have is more time and more team to work with, to have more time to really connect, bridge, and have the real impact also.
If you talk about creating bridges and if you talk about making impact, what impact does an embassy really have in a country?
Well, an embassy is... In Benin, we are a small... No, in the world we are a small player. But in Benin, the Netherlands is a bit a moderate, big player. So we have impact when it is about talking to decision makers, connecting, for example, young people with decision makers. You can have an impact and facilitate that as an embassy. You can also, with the development aid, you have results, concrete results on water, on economic growth, on entrepreneurs. So all this, I think, that's its impact.
I made it a little bit extreme in the example that you gave us. I'm going to make it extreme here as well, because it's great that you facilitate conversations in the garden about LGBTI plus rights, but that's in the comfort of your garden. In real life, in the world of Benin, it doesn't really have an impact because they're not being protected like they are in the garden of the embassy. So what's the use?
Ask them. I'm sure that they would say, I'm so happy that this ambassador is listening to us when we are beaten. Just lastly, there was, I think 3 weeks ago, 3 transgender persons were extremely harshly beaten by a group of men. And I think then with the European Union ambassadors, we received them. And it was about giving moral support. The COC, the Dutch organization, do help them with shelter and with protection, etc. So we have both things. But as an ambassador, you give moral support. Yeah. And then that you can't go sit before the door, but you can give them the support when they need it, when they are beaten up.
Yeah, of course, and it's about providing network, providing information, and giving them strength as well.
And also,
I think that within Benin, as she's saying, such a situation come often on the ground, but we have some mechanism for the country, some association, from shelters and so on, to deal with the situation on the ground. And what is most important is that in this issue you are highlighting, we have to work closely with the government, because such a violation comes often from the government themselves. If you are in an area where they are adopting a law against them, you will be in trouble. So I think that my country will never take such a law, because we are there to still convincing them and saying it's not your job. Your job is somewhere else. Your job is about the childhood, the women's rights, the situation of detention, a center of detention and so on, education, water and so on. But you can let the LGBTI at their place and let them quite live their life. You know, we can discuss with them. I remember that at a moment they have been convinced to take a law in Benin. But we go to discuss with them and tell to them, no, it's not your commitment. We have more to do in our home country. We will not give another problem on the basket of problems we are dealing with until now.
And they do listen to that as well.
Yeah.
Another question about the access of information, because you mentioned that the COC in the Netherlands supports Benin activists as well. Is there enough access to information? Is there, for example, has everybody got access to online information, because that's where a lot of things happen right now?
The access on internet is 36% coverage of internet for the country. I think a lot of activists, especially, are very well connected to even to the global world. And so if you speak about the environmental activists or about the LGBTQI rights, they really are connected with the real world, the whole world. But still, it's only 36%. So the ambition of this government is really to give a huge coverage of internet everywhere. A lot of programs at schools are also working with digital tools so that children learn how to have access, how to make the difference also between what is news and what is fake news. The whole programs we are working on sexual and reproductive rights and health on schools is also about access to internet. There are internet cafes so that people can, and also that you can come with free Wi-Fi for the whole neighborhood. You see,
to share that, and that's something, a task that the government took upon themselves. In certain countries, you see that governments are afraid of internet because of the access of information. Is that the case in Benin as well, or not?
No, I don't think so. No. We are not facing. You know, governments also have their own challenge. And I remember that at a moment, some people have convinced them to deal with such an issue. But when the government well understood that, no, we cannot continue to deal with this situation, they let this program down. They let the program down. And I think that they have free access now. I don't know.
And they are quite keen on digitalized procedures. So in 4 hours, you can set up a new enterprise in Benin, completely digitalized.
All right.
And you have a back office with a lot of, with the lawyer, with the cadastre, with the all the services needed, and then and it's much faster than here in the Netherlands. So be our guest.
And I will create an enterprise in Benin. but
people do, from New York, from Canada, to have.
But it doesn't benefit the people from Benin if it's access only through internet.
You can also phone. They have for analphabet persons, because a lot of women are not necessarily white.
Moderators should go to Benin.
I think so.
Sorry?
We should put into place a program, and you should go to Benin.
I would love that. There's a question over there.
How do you deal?
Just 1 second, because if we.
How do you deal the conflict between the human rights and the traditional culture? For instance, to make it concrete, we work together with a children's rights lawyer in the Voodoo country in Dogbo. Yeah. And there are lots of children put into the Voodoo convents to learn the ceremonies, the Voodoo language, etc., etc. So they don't go to school. So there's a conflict. You have the human rights, you have the children's rights to go to school, but they have their own, they say, we have our own culture. They go to our own schools in the Voodoo convents. How do you deal with that?
You or me?
Vous voulez?
Allez-y, c'est votre pays.
I can say that at date, this issue is going lower, is going down. But it still remains. It still remains. And what I see a few days ago in my box is that even some intellectuals now are working to deal with their own culture. I think that way is good, because we cannot forget totally our culture.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And you lose your culture.
Yeah. But what will be good is that it should be the own choice of that children. If he is going to school and he decides one day to go to deal with his own culture, is better. Because what happened before is that the children has no choice. They have no choice. It's bad, yeah. And there is disparity between some children of the same family and others. You will see in the same family 2 or 3 children who has been put in a Vodou, and 2 or just one child who is an intellectual. Is not fair.
Don't.
And I think that it should be done on the basis of the willingness of that people. And today we are seeing some big man and strong man, intellectual who are teachers, who are, I don't know, administrators and so on, but who are dealing now with their own culture to keep the culture into place. That is the best.
Yeah, and what you see also is that there are religious leaders, as the Queen of Talinongde, that is really promoting that girls can go to school while they are at the public school, while they are at the convent.
Yeah.
So it is also to see not as only a conflict, but as a way of you still can have your voodoo religion and still go to the public school and have a public career. And so she was herself was grown up in a convent to become queen and priestess.
Yeah.
None.
Priest.
Yeah.
Not nun,
Prêtresse.
because they can be married.
Prêtresse.
Yes.
Prêtresse. And but she said, I would have loved to go to school. So now, within the voodoo movement, they discuss this kind of things and really try to open up. And I think if you talk about sexual rights, or you really have to work with the religious leaders on this kind of issues. And it's not necessarily opposite, but it is about where are the possibilities to still respect the different elements of a religion and still also go to school and have your own rights.
Yeah.
And does the embassy take a formal position in that conflict?
It's not a conflict. The embassy stimulates that religious leaders talk to each other, and those who really are the forefront fighters for sexual rights, they come together and they go to discuss it with it. And we stimulate financially that they can do all those meetings and discussions with young people.
Right, because it was described, and
It's
maybe the
not
microphone.
necessarily a conflict.
But these voodoo priests, they lose power. They lose power over people. So they don't give away their power just like that. So there is a conflict.
There is a conflict there, but
No, I feel it's why I was saying that just now, that culture are very strong. Culture is very strong, and but it is important to work on what is bad on the ground. You know, we need positive culture, but we don't need negative culture. So it's at this point we can speak about conflict. But I think that if we want to resolve this kind of conflict, as she's saying, we should continue to convince, to inform people who are at this junction, you know, and to say to them, all the children have the same rights. You cannot decide by yourself to put, even it is your own child, to put him in the couvent of Vaudou. You know, is why I was saying that we are continuing to work with them. And today you can see that in Benin, some high-level people like to be priests in Vaudou. And it is their own choice. It's better than you will put your child
force them into the
force them to do it. That is on this way we have a conflict, because in Benin today, law is saying that all the children should go to school.
Yeah.
You don't have right to put them, to let them not to go to school.
Yeah. Right.
And at the same moment, the government cannot accept that you will leave out the child and go to put him in jail of Vaudou.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there final questions before we close off for tonight? Yes, there's one question there.
Thank you very much for both your introductions. I had a question for the judge, because she's working for the International Criminal Court, and she's a very active lady on women's rights. And of course, the ICC not only deals with women's rights, but with many more issues, legal issues. But I was wondering your ideals for women's rights, can you combine them with your work as a judge, and how do you deal with them?
Yeah, it's a quite difficult question, because because as judge you should follow the rule of law, you know. But in some situation, if you are speaking globally about the victims, and when we are talking about victims in the ICC context, is more women than other people, you know. But sometimes you have to face some situation where the document you have at hand is weak. Is weak. You cannot work strongly with that. You have to follow the rule, you know. But I can tell to you that in the ICC context now, they have many tools which we can use to help all the victims, even when they don't have document, because we know that the fact on which they always speak is so far and long time between the date on which the violation happened on the ground and when they came to the court. And we have all these situations we always deal with, you know. So, but in my capacity of judge, it's quite difficult because I have in one hand the statute, the rules, the resolution, I have the document on politics and so on, and in another hand we have the situation of the victim. But at the end of the day, we have to take a decision.
You said you are an activist and you're also a judge. Are you an activist judge, or as a judge an activist?
I can tell you that sometimes the activists come beyond the judge. Sometimes.
Sometimes it takes over.
Sometimes.
Very good. We've reached the end of the program, unfortunately, because we could have continued our conversation for much more longer. But it's one final question that I would like to ask you. And we, of course, as an ambassador, you're responsible for the relationship between Benin and the Netherlands. Is there anything the Netherlands can do more to support Benin?
A lot.
Tell me, tell us what is that?
No, what is interesting is really, I think it's overall you can really work well in Benin. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to do together, to join up forces on environmental issues, on not only on women's rights but also on economic stability, on multilateralism. And so I think, yes, we can do still more. There's actually the embassy is quite small. There are other work coming from The Hague, but we could do more. And also, I think people see always Benin as a small little country there, and Nigeria is big. But if you want to really have impact, come to Benin.
Ah. Yeah. But the embassy is quite small, but the budget is relatively big.
Well,
am I correct?
Relatively, we can double.
Am I correct that it's 30 million statue, 25 million, and another additional 15 million from the Netherlands government as well? Yeah. So that's quite a big budget, isn't it? Could always be more.
Can be more.
What else can the Netherlands do from your perspective to help Benin even more?
To help my country, she has said, I'm not politician, she's politician, and she knows what to say and what to do. But what I can say is that the both country has many things to share. We have culture to share. We have our environment to share. And when I came to The Hague, I discovered two things. I discovered flowers.
What?
Flowers,
yeah.
And I discovered bicycles. And I think that it is something, if I can get just a few parts of flowers and how to convince population to bike.
Yeah.
I will be happy.
So Ren, can I invite you for Cotonou à vélo, the 17th of September?
Let's Cotonou on the bike. That's,
Cotonou on the bike.
What is that?
We are organizing with the Association of Bicycling a feast of bicycling in Cotonou, just to show the resilience of people on the bike.
That's a great.
With in times of Corona, out of Corona.
That's a great initiative.
Yeah.
But then this was
Another
actually.
thing we can share is, as we are talking about Vodou, Vodou has been institutionalized in my country.
Yeah.
The good way of Vodou is institutionalized in my country, and you can come. 10th of January of each year. You can do your program through Madame Ambassador, and you can come and visit Benin.
My final question, because we talked about what the Netherlands can do more, and we talked about something cultural as flowers and bicycles. What can the Netherlands take from Benin to have here, to introduce here, to be part of Dutch culture?
I speak about my own culture, the good way of the culture. And we have also a lot of good food.
Next time we meet again, I will propose that it contains dinner as well. Well, thank you thank you so much for your information, enlightening us about your work and enlightening us about your work as well. I think it's been very inspirational, at least for me it was. So thank you so much. Thank you for visiting here. Thank you for looking, and hopefully we'll see each other next time. Bye-bye.